All right, apologies for the late start, everybody. I am not 100% yet, but I'm almost there. It just kind of hit me out of nowhere after traveling to Georgia. I don't know. I had a bad bout with allergies, and so I don't know. I just felt like it hit me like a ton of bricks, so I had to take a full day off, and I'm still kind of recovering, still healing, but it's no big deal. I'm back. But I appreciate everybody for being here. I hope you enjoyed the coverage on Saturday. If you didn't get a chance to check it out, we're going to be in Iowa 2 weeks from now. So next Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday, Des Moines, Iowa. There's another Trump rally, so we'll be covering that. So hopefully you can tune in, and if you live in the area, hopefully you can come out. Appreciate everybody for being here. Met a lot of great people on Saturday. I got to tell you, man, the Southern hospitality in Florida or in Georgia is like nowhere else. It's great. So I had a blast. And the reason why we're live on this channel is because it's just out of an abundance of caution. I just want to make sure that when I'm mentioning anything related to the virus or the vaccine, that I'm on this channel that's not monetized. If they give it a strike, they give it a strike. I went through their updated community guidelines, and it's like so much longer and more detailed on what you can't say. And I mean, it is what it is. So that's why we're going to be live on this channel. That's why. So I would prefer to be on the main channel, but because I don't know what I'm going to say, I don't know. I speak off the cuff. It's not rehearsed. There's no teleprompter. I may say some naughty words that get me, nailed to the cross by the YouTube overlord. So in order to avoid that, I'm just going to go live on this channel. So whenever you see a live stream on this channel, that's what it's going to be. It does also suck that it won't be uploaded until like 15 to 20 hours after the fact. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So long story short, for the people that aren't able to catch this live, or for future reference, if you're watching this right now, after the fact, if you don't catch it live, you'll have to go to my community tab where I'll share an actual link, because there's no way you'll see it otherwise. And that's the way you'll see it between the time it uploads till like the next day when they finally actually put it on my channel. So now that we got that out of the way, thanks everybody for being here. Make sure you give it a thumbs up, all that good jazz. Let's jump right into it. Let's talk about this creepy New York governor who is, promoting vaccine supremacy, vaccine segregation, and discrimination based on vaccine status. I mean, this is so, and now she's bringing religion into it. Last week, ironically, the live stream that I did, the very last live stream I did on this channel, I want to say last Monday or Tuesday, was about the cult-like worship of the pharmaceutical companies at that concert, Kaiser Chiefs over in the UK. And YouTube took that down, gave me a warning because of something I must have said in there. But anyway, I talked about how it is cult-like and how they should never, ever, ever shame you for going to a Trump rally wearing a MAGA hat, because you're supporting a president that did some things that improved your quality of life, improved your country, et cetera, et cetera. This right here is cult-like worship of not only a medical procedure, a product, a company, a faceless organization, and the fact that they promote it as such, like this is the greatest thing ever, it's life-saving. They're not doing a whole lot to convince us that it's not a cult, that you would like it. They treat it as if it's some kind of religious cult, as if getting the injection is somehow like a baptism, and now you are saved. You've taken this holy product. So I'm going to play this video, and I'm just going to destroy this governor for all of her hypocrisy, her fallacies, and her promotion of the things that I mentioned: vaccine supremacy, segregation, and discrimination based on vaccination status.
We have to get this community back. And what we went through this pandemic made us stronger. I believe that, especially when I talk to young people who weren't able to have their graduations from high school or a normal life for the last 18 months. I say to them, whatever comes your way in life, you are stronger. You are more resilient. God let you survive this pandemic because he wants you to do great things someday. He lets you live through this when so many other people did not. And that is also your responsibility. But how do we keep more people alive? We are not through this pandemic. I wished we were, but I prayed a lot to God during this time. And you know what? God did answer our prayers. He made the smartest men and women, the scientists, the doctors, the researchers. He made them come up with a vaccine. That is from God to us. And we must say, thank you, God. Thank you. And I wear my vaccinated necklace all the time to say, I'm vaccinated. All of you. Yes, I know you're vaccinated. You're the smart ones, but you know there's people out there who aren't listening to God and what God wants. You know this. You know who they are. I need you to be my apostles. I need you to go out and talk about it and say, we owe this to each other. We love each other. Jesus taught us to love one another. And how do you show that love? But to care about each other enough to say, please get vaccinated because I love you. I want you to live. I want our kids to be safe when they're in schools. I want you to be safe when you go to a doctor's office or to a hospital and are treated by somebody. You don't want to get the virus from them. You're already sick or you wouldn't be there. We have to solve this, my friends. I need every one of you. I need you to let them know that this is how we can fight this pandemic, come back to normal, and then start talking about the real issues that we have to. Fighting systemic racial injustice, which exists today. And if there's a denier, I will take you on any day because I've seen it. I know it exists. And we are not going to have a blind eye to this ever again any longer under my watch. And that is my commitment to you.
I'm sorry. We had to go through the entire 2 minutes and 10 seconds of that. That was so painful, horrible, cringy, blasphemous. Let's get right into everything she said. Okay. First of all, she said the vaccine, God let you survive this. Okay. God let you survive so you can do better things. He let you survive COVID so you can do better things. Okay. The same can be said for you surviving a car accident, you beating cancer, you beating any other terminal illness. I mean, she's trying to put all of the stock of God and worship and being religious and being a Christian with COVID. You see that? How she's blending it together? This is all about the COVID virus, and God let you survive this. God let you survive everything. Okay. God woke you up. It's not everybody that goes to bed is going to wake up. Some people just die out of the clear blue. When it's your time to go, it's your time to go. And I don't care if you're watching this and if you believe in God or not. That's not how it works. When it's your time, it's your time. And that was true before COVID. Some people die in freak accidents. Look what happened to Kobe Bryant, right? And she's saying like, look, you survived this. So that means you need to be doing this. This is how you should be living your life based on the fact that God let you survive COVID. You survive a million things without even knowing about it, without thinking about it. There's a lot that you survive. Every time you get in your car, you're taking a risk. Every time you fly on a plane, you're taking a risk. Every time, I don't need to go down the list. There's a lot of reasons why you should be grateful to be alive. I talk about that all the time. Be grateful for what you have. Be grateful to be alive or whatever. But God let you survive this virus. Then she said the vaccine is from God. I mean, now it's just getting really, really creepy, really weird, really wicked. Okay. The vaccine is not from God. Okay. The vaccine is from people. Okay. People who may or may not have good intentions. We don't know. Okay. And for her to say that this vaccine is from God, try telling that to somebody who may or may not have had an adverse reaction. Try telling them that God wants them to have this, even though they're damaged from it. I mean, worshiping a man-made product is blasphemous. Now, if you want to talk about God, God created the earth, the heavens, the birds, the bees, the trees, the humans, the medicine that naturally occurs in nature. That's what God created. Man did all these other things. Architecture, the automobile, and yes, the vaccine. So her saying this is directly from God. I prayed about it to God. That was an awful line. And then at the very next sentence, after she says this is from God, God is the reason you're here, she tries to play God. How can we keep more people alive? Well, last time I checked, that's not how it works. Humans don't keep other humans alive. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's life-saving surgery, there's all kind of modern medicine. I don't like, I don't dunk on modern medicine. Obviously, there's purpose for it. We have life-saving medical procedures, we've had medical advancements, but it's still ultimately not up to you if you survive or not. It is already ordained. It's God determines if you live or die. You basically have no control over when you go. When it's your time, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. So then she's like, yes, how can we keep more people alive? And then she promotes this whole vaccine supremacy, this virtue signal. Look at me. I have my vaccinated necklace. Remember how they say, look at the MAGA cult. They're wearing MAGA hats. Yeah, I'm going to take this MAGA hat off when this live stream's over. But people getting these tattoos and, promoting it. Look at me. Look how moral I am. Look how much better I am than everyone else. I'm so moral. I'm over here saving humanity. And you're over there denying the science that's from God. And then she also said, you're one of the smart ones. So she's promoting the fact that if you fell in line, if you did what I told you to do, that means you're one of the smart ones, which implies people who didn't do what she told them to do are stupid. They're not listening to God. Did it ever occur to this blasphemous woman that maybe people listen to God and that's why they haven't done this? Maybe people trust their God-given immune system. Maybe people trust the fact that they have a solid track record of defeating viruses. Maybe they just don't feel like it's necessary for them. So she's trying to conflate all this with like religion, and it's really evil stuff. So wearing a necklace, right, saying that you got vaccinated just promotes the supremacy idea that, yes, you are supreme because you did this and you should wear it so everybody knows. And then also, if you haven't gotten it, it's because you're dumb and you guys are the smart ones that have gotten it. And then she's saying, will you survive this? You should be my apostle. So the language she's using, I'm not on board with that at all. And then she went on to how if we can defeat this virus, which that's not how viruses work, so that's misinformation on her part, that you're just going to defeat it when it mutates, and we already have to acknowledge it's going to be here forever. She's promoting the false idea that if everybody just gets this medical procedure, this magically goes away and we can get back to normal to fight other issues which are more important. And then she went into systemic racism. Last time I checked, the system that you put in place in New York, you and de Blasio, the system you have discriminates against people of color. You want to talk about systemic racism? You have a system in place right now that's going to disproportionately affect people of color, whether that's intentional or not. That is systemic racism. It may not be racially targeted, but it still has the unintended consequence of affecting people of a certain race, which is what the left claims to be so focused on trying to fix. So she's a big flying hypocrite for this entire little spiel, and to get that kind of worship, get the applause is just, I put this on par with the last week concert where they stopped a concert to bow to the big pharmaceutical corporations. And not only that, play teams like, which team are you on? Team Pfizer, Team Moderna, or Team AstraZeneca? Nah, man, they're just doing an awful job with convincing people that they need to get this done. First of all, it should sell itself. If it's such a world-beating, life-saving miracle, stop discouraging people from doing their own research. Stop discouraging and trying to suppress people who are trying to tell their story and their testimony. Let all the information that is out there be known, and stop trying to put your thumb on the scale, and stop trying to shame people. Stop discriminating against people. Stop dividing us and pushing hatred and segregation. based on medical procedures. We've never done this before in the history of the world, where you're segregating people based on medical status. Times where you have done that before in historic context, it hasn't ended well. Think 1930s Germany. So they're just, and this is the new governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. If you're wondering who this woman is, she replaced disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo. So New York, you didn't really upgrade there. In fact, she's gonna probably seize as much power as she can. And just think, she was unelected. She just happened to assume the role because Cuomo was forced out. And right up top, she's in there with this vaccine supremacy. And the other thing too, what is, if she's such a religious, holier than thou figure, and look at me, I'm such a great, wonderful Christian. What about the late term abortion that is allowed in your state, ma'am? I mean, or you're just going to pretend like late term abortion is the same thing as emergency contraception. It's the same thing. You take the morning after pill, or a few weeks before delivery, you terminate the pregnancy. It's the same thing. It's all birth control. Is that going to be her stance? I don't want to make a straw man against the woman, but
we have to get this community back.
I can't hear it again. Sorry, that just kind of played. I mean, what are you going to do there? Hypocrite. So yeah, that was the cringe thing that I had to just rant about really quick. And the reason why I had to do it on this channel, as I said before, is because who knows? YouTube's really sensitive right now. They might take what I just said and spin it and give this channel a strike. Knock on wood. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But we're on my second channel just to be sure. You know, as I'm trying to skate around and not, you know, I'm kind of tiptoeing a little bit. But anyway, let's move on to the red flag laws. I talked about this last week briefly as I heard about it, I think on late Thursday night or Friday. And then I went into the weekend where we had the rally. So there are a total of 135 Republican House members who voted in favor of red flag laws last week. It's a long list of people. There are some notable names on there. I highlighted some of the names. We'll go through the list. I'm not going to name every single person, of course, but I'm going to highlight some of the people who are notable, some of the names that may be a shock. Some you're not going to be surprised at all. But anyway, Madison Cawthorn is one of those congressmen, and he actually, because he got so much backlash for it, he actually issued this statement on it. So I don't know if y'all heard it yet, but let's just hear what he has to say.
Hey everyone, Madison Cawthorn here. Wanted to make a really quick video concisely responding to these criticisms of people believing that I support red flag laws. One, that is completely false. I believe the Second Amendment was written so that we can have a well-armed citizenry, because as soon as we give up our weapons, we are no longer citizens, but we're subjects. The Second Amendment was written so that if we ever needed to stop tyranny, we could do so. That is what it's for, clear and simple. I am trying to abolish the NFA, trying to work on this Hearings Protections Act, trying to make sure SBR is taking off the NFA first thing as fast as I possibly can. And then I want to abolish the NFA in totality later as soon as we gain the majority. But the reason I had to take a vote yesterday, which is one that is the National Defense Authorization Act, which is one that is used to actually pay for our military, give them a pay raise, all of these things. The reason I had to vote for it yesterday, and let me explain it, that just because it passed in this first iteration does not mean that this is going into law. It has to go through this system, what's called taking it to conference, then it has to go through the Senate, then we have to vote on it again. So this was not actually passing this into law. There's a lot of minutia behind the scenes of how Washington works with this. So I promise you this red flag bullshit is not going into law. The reason we had to vote for this is because so many of our active duty military who are refusing to take the vaccine are being dishonorably discharged. And that basically makes them a felon in our society. And that is something that I think is just absolutely wrong and incorrect. Unfortunately, we had a stolen election, so therefore Joe Biden is in command of our military, and he's trying to force all of these vaccines down the throats of our military. And so the reason we had to vote for this and get it through quickly is so that it would prohibit people who decline to take the vaccine in the military from being dishonorably discharged. Now, Let me explain to you the red flag portion of that. So that was a portion that, yes, it is in that bill, but then it went going into conference. I've spoken to people on the Senate side, and I know for a fact this will not go into law. This part will be stripped out of it. If it is not in it, I will absolutely burn it to the ground. That is impossible, and I'll make sure it does not pass through the House. So I just want to let you all know I am not betrayed anybody in the Second Amendment community. I promise I will always have your back. I am armed every single day. I believe.
Okay. So let me say this. I commend Madison Cawthorn for making a statement, issuing a public statement. This is looks like he's driving or something. This looks like an intimate, hey, let me get online real quick and address the concerns of not only my constituents, but conservatives, Second Amendment community across the country, because he is, I guess, a rising star in the GOP. A lot of people like him. I don't know him personally. I've seen him. I think we interviewed him at CPAC, but I didn't get a chance to meet him. He seems like a great guy, but he wanted to go on record and say he does not support red flag laws, having voted for it anyway. Okay, so I commend him for saying that. However, this still feels like a compromise to me. It feels like giving in to the demands of the left, because them putting in red flag laws, they're always trying to sprinkle in and add and bake in stuff into these bills, and then Republicans just go along with it. And then it's always giving ground. And personally, if it were me and I were in his shoes, sorry, I'm not going on record having voted to subvert the Second Amendment. I'm not doing it, especially right now when you got all this rhetoric about this mandated medicine, about Biden talking about nuking Americans. We have the worst president, most tyrannical president in my lifetime, and I'm not going on record voting for something that's going to eventually become law if the Democrats do take out. So for him to even say, I know for a fact that this won't pass. You don't know for a fact. You don't know who's going to turn coat. You don't know who's been bought off. We've been stabbed in the back by so many Republicans, so many so-called conservatives, so many so-called liberty-minded politicians that pretend like they stand on solid ground and they're going to defend the Constitution, when in reality, they're just ceding ground to the left. It's just a speed bump towards tyranny and totalitarianism. That's what we had. Because if you look at our country, it continues to move left no matter who's in office. No matter who's been in office, whether it's a Republican-controlled House and Senate, Republican-controlled White House, we still move to the left. So what are we conserving if we're going to vote in mass for red flag laws and say, well, no, this is about our military servicemen getting dishonorable discharge? You should have stood your ground at the beginning. Like, the red flag needs to be out of there. Get it out. We're not voting for it. It should have been held up in the House. That's just my opinion, but I'm not a politician. I don't know all of the inner workings and the ins and outs of everything that went on. But to me, this is a bad optics. This is a bad look that you would go on record having voted for red flag confiscation. Now, Madison Cawthorn, I will give him the benefit of the doubt because he just explained his rationale for why he did it. Even though I don't agree with it, he still went on record to say, hey, guys, here's the situation. It's terrible. It's awful. But here is the plan. He at least says that. But I'm not even going to give him a pass, but I'm going to say, like I said, he gets the benefit of the doubt. However, the other 134 Republicans, unless they've gone on record, they don't get the same pass. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because I don't know a lot of these Republicans, and I hope that because it's 135 of them, guys. So many states are on this list. I'm not going down the list of names. There's probably some names I could have highlighted that sounded like familiar, but I don't know them. So I just highlighted some people that I do know. Okay, right off top, look at this list right here. Okay, you got Madison Cawthorn, you got Liz Cheney and Dan Crenshaw. Now, let's start with Liz Cheney. Do you think Liz Cheney cares about the Second Amendment? Do you think her voting yes for red flag laws is the same as Madison Cawthorn? He just explained why he voted for it, but has Liz Cheney? Do you think that all of these Republicans voted because of the reason Madison Cawthorn did? It's possible, but unless they make it known, I can only assume that they're trying to undermine the Second Amendment. Liz Cheney, I could see her wanting to undermine the Second Amendment. She's a Republican in name only. She gets more praise, more support from Democrat leadership. Her constituency absolutely despises her. She has to get George Bush to come in and fundraise for her, because she's not getting small dollar donations. She's going to appeal to the donor class, special interest groups. She's probably trying to just line her pockets on her way out, because Trump endorsing her opponent means she's all but done. All right. So I don't think Liz Cheney cares about the Second Amendment. I don't think she cares about the Constitution. She's certainly not America first. She despises this MAGA, America first, liberty movement, whatever you want to call this new resurgence of conservatism in America. She's not on board with it. She wants the good old days, the George Bush days, when Dick Cheney and George Bush and John McCain were the figureheads of the Republican Party. That's what she wants. She's old school. Okay. Dan Crenshaw, I mean, he voted for red flag laws as recently as 2009, and he's got criticism for that. He supports red flag laws. He said, as a matter of fact, he said that after the shootings, we had 2 mass shootings, I believe in 2019, one in Ohio and then one in Texas. You all remember that? It was like El Paso, a Walmart, and then there was one in like Toledo, Ohio, or somewhere, Dayton, I think it was. Dan Crenshaw, within a day or so, issued a statement saying that he supported red flag gun laws. I'm sorry. So him voting for this now makes me think he still believes we should have red flag laws. And he's gotten criticism for it. I'm sure he's issued statements about it. But this is now twice that he's on record supporting red flag laws. Who else we got on the list? Congressman Matt Gaetz out of Florida. This is a disappointing one. Now, it's very possible that he has the same reason for voting for it as Madison Cawthorn, which I still disagree with. I would never vote on anything that I do not support and is not defending the Constitution. I don't care if it's well, it's a workaround. We're playing the long game, 5D chess. I don't care. No, you got to put your foot down right away. Okay, so it's possible that Matt Gaetz does not support red flag laws. I have no idea. I'm waiting for him to issue a statement. He just followed me on Twitter. Maybe I'll reach out to him. And I bet you know what? He's a nice guy. I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. I'm not trying to badmouth him. He would probably clear the air and say something similar. But it's still a bad look to see your congressman on a list of people that are trying to undermine the Second Amendment, especially right now. Who else you got? Anthony Gonzalez out of Ohio. This isn't a shocker. He's a RINO. Trump endorsed his opponent. He is not seeking re-election, so he's just going for broke. He doesn't care. But still, not a surprise to see his name on that list. There's a couple more on here. Greg Pence out of Indiana, Mike Pence's brother. I don't know anything about the guy, but do you think that he supports the red flag laws, or do you think he stands with for the reason that Madison Cawthorn said? Is it really about what's going on in our military? I don't know. You got to go through this list. 135 Republicans on this list. Mike Waltz out of Florida. This is another shocker. I mean, he's my congressman. So I'm not, I'm surprised to see this. And again, I want to see statements. I want to know what this is about. And this is why I keep saying it is so important to vet the people that you're going to vote for in your state. Because especially if it's in a red area and you know that like they could just coast to re-election, don't just give them your vote. If they have a primary challenger, vet that primary challenger and then compare them with the voting record of your current congressman. So if you were to vet, let's say in my county, it's a red county. Mike Waltz, I think he got elected in 2018. I can't remember. But let's say he was up for re-election and he had no Democrat challengers, just a red county. He's going to get reelected. I could either just vote for him like, yep, it's a Republican. Let's just keep it red, status quo. Or if he had an opponent, a primary opponent, I would look at that primary opponent. Okay, what do you bring to the table that my current congressman doesn't? And then I would look at my current congressman and see, well, he voted for red flag laws. He voted for the debt ceiling to be raised. He voted for whatever. Then I would be like, well, I'm going to support this guy. Maybe Trump needs to know about this. Maybe Trump needs to endorse that. Even Trump himself, at the last rally in Georgia over the weekend, he acknowledged that endorsing Brian Kemp was a mistake. And he also said somebody told him to endorse Brian Kemp. So right off top, Trump's not getting the best advice. If he endorsed Brian Kemp, he endorsed some other people that he's probably not proud of. They stabbed him in the back. He went and endorsed Kelly Loeffler, and she stabbed him in the back. So there, you know what I mean? There's a lot that can be done to strengthen and stiffen the spine of the GOP. Right now, it's really weak outside of a handful of people who are really outspoken and really are just like firebrands. That's what we need. We need people with a fighting spirit. No more milquetoast, fence-sitting rhinos and just kind of like, I don't know, bland candidates. We need fighters in there, people that are going to fiercely defend the Constitution. So I say all that to say, vet your candidates. You cannot trust them. You can't just blindly trust them because there's an R next to their name, especially when you got this long list, 135 Republicans. That is insane. That is a lot of GOP, supposedly, liberty, the Freedom Party, and they're over there undermining, subverting the Second Amendment. Whether their intention is to do that and so that they can, make another move elsewhere and then whatever, or if they actually really want to disarm you. There's no way to know. So if it were me and if I were you, I would be making sure my congressman or woman hears from me. So that's all I can really say about it. Right. Moving on. So this lieutenant colonel from the military, Stuart Scheller, he's been jailed for speaking out, and I'm just now hearing about this, for asking for accountability for the Afghanistan withdrawal. Now, this is terrible optics. He probably knew he was going to be arrested. He probably knew he would be facing some consequences and be asked to resign, especially as he's criticizing his commanders and he's in uniform and all that. And I don't even know if it's standard procedure for him to be in jail, military jail or whatever. I don't think he's going to be facing like years in prison. But how is it that he's being held accountable for what he did, which is just voice his opinion and rightfully criticize the Afghanistan withdrawal? How is it that he's facing swift consequences in action, but the people who withdrew from Afghanistan and botched the entire thing have faced zero consequences whatsoever? Mark Milley still has his job. Joe Biden still has his job. That other guy, the black dude, I can't remember what his title is, but he is a part of the Afghanistan withdrawal. How is it that they still have their jobs, but they're going to crack down and essentially make an example out of this guy? They're going to make an example out of him, Stuart Scheller, so that nobody else speaks out. How is this not further purging the military, on top of the fact that they're trying to force jab military servicemen and give them dishonorable discharge if they don't get the jab? But let's hear what he has to say. And I'm curious, where in this little spiel this little rant, where does he lie? Where does he mislead? What does he get wrong?
But the reason people are so upset on social media right now is not because the Marine on the battlefield let someone down. That service member has always rose to the occasion and done extraordinary things. People are upset because their senior leaders let them down, and none of them are raising their hands and accepting accountability or saying, we messed this up. If an 05 battalion commander has the simplest live fire incident EO complaint, boom, fired. But we have a Secretary of Defense that testified to Congress in May that the Afghan National Security Force could withstand the Taliban advance. We have chairmen of Joint Chief, who the Commandant is a member of that, who's supposed to advise on military policy. We have a Marine combatant commander. All of these people are supposed to advise. And I'm not saying we've got to be in Afghanistan forever, but I am saying, did any of you throw your rank on the table and say, hey, it's a bad idea to evacuate Bagram Airfield, the strategic air base, before we evacuate everyone? Did anyone do that? And when you didn't think to do that, did anyone raise their hand and say, we completely messed this up? I've got battalion commander friends right now that are posting similar things, and they're saying, wondering if all the lives were lost and if it was in vain, all those people that we've lost over the last 20 years. And he goes on to say that we're all part of a chain. While every link may not be tested, the strength of the chain is only as strong as each link, and you got to be, good links, something like that. And what I'll say is, from my position, potentially all those people did die in vain if we don't have senior leaders that own up and raise their hand and say, we did not do this well in the end. Without that, we just keep repeating the same mistakes. This amalgamation of the economic / corporate / political / higher military ranks are not holding up their end of the bargain. I want to say this very strongly. I have been fighting for 17 years. I am willing to throw it all away to say to my senior leaders, I demand accountability.
Where's the lie, y'all? Where is the lie? Now, they are bringing down the house on this guy, and they're going to make an example out of him, unfortunately, for him speaking out, which I think is pretty brave and courageous. And he knew that there would be some form of consequences on him going on record, especially in uniform, to criticize leadership. I mean, the leadership was a lack thereof. So that I get it. They probably think, well, he's just encouraging dissent, and that's going to be a bad look, demoralizing people. But what about the fact that the leadership failed? People died recently over this whole botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. What about the fact that Mark Milley has not taken any accountability? I mean, you got this loser. He, first of all, the white rage comment. I mean, the military's flown off the rails. We have a weak military right now, super weak. The recruitment videos, the woke propaganda, the indoctrination, the purging dissent, the forced inoculations, and the fact that I don't know, or somebody can maybe tell me in the comments, is this standard procedure to be jailed for this? I know for like law enforcement, I mean, you're not supposed to do certain things while you're in uniform. There's a certain code of conduct when you're not in uniform. And of course, when you are in uniform, especially, I mean, there was a local sheriff out here who got reprimanded for making TikToks in uniform. I mean, no matter what you think of that, her goal was she wanted to try to humanize the badge and let people know. I mean, that's commendable. I think it's kind of weird to do the TikTok thing, but you know what I'm saying? She got reprimanded for that. I understand that, but this should not be allowed to fly. This is wrong. This is wrong for this man to go to jail and be met with harsh consequences, which I assume are going to be pretty harsh just for speaking out. But the people who he's criticizing don't own up to what they did. He's asking for accountability, and in response, he's being held accountable. So I think it's a disgrace. What can somebody say in the comments if this is standard procedure? I'm going to pull up the chat real quick because I'm genuinely curious about this. Where is the chat? It's hiding on one of the screens over there. Okay, here we go. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Has anybody said anything in there? Is that standard procedure? It's only showing the top chat. Live chat. I don't see any answers yet. I'll go back through in the end. I'll go back at the end, and if this is standard procedure, somebody please let me know if you're a current or former service member. But right now, I mean, if I were thinking about joining the armed forces, I would think twice. I'd be like, so they want me to be really woke and soft and politically correct, and the leadership doesn't take accountability over their mistakes. Instead, they double down on their mistakes, and then they will hold me accountable if I ever speak out. I think you should change that. You should be able to criticize leadership, especially under these circumstances. Yes, people did die in vain, including the 13 people who died from that suicide bomber, that ISIS-K. Was it even ISIS-K? I don't even want to go there. The 13 service members that lost their lives as a result of this withdrawal. I mean, the entire thing is a mess. So I don't know if this guy has a GoFundMe or what, but I'm just hearing about it. And I think it's from a couple of days ago, at least this video he made. But he's incarcerated right now. So it's sad. Moving on. I don't know why I had this video on my list. I can't even remember what it's about, but it's Australia announcing that they're just going to be in a permanent tyrannical government overreach state of existence.
Stress. We will not be ever having to go back to pre-COVID levels. We're always going to have to be mindful that COVID exists. We're going to have to engage with booster shots. We're going to have to engage with advice from time to time. When we see outbreaks, we're going to have to respond. So it's not going to go back to normal. We can't deny that we're going to have to live with COVID. But having those very high vaccination levels will allow us to have more minimal restrictions or more minimal public health measures in place as we navigate the future years with COVID.
This is so dumb. So she acknowledges that it's never going anywhere, which I agree. It's not. It's here to stay, just like the flu. It's here. But then she turns around and says, this is why we have to have high vaccination rates. What difference does it make if you're saying you're not going back to normal anyway? What difference does it make? And then she says, so we would have to have minimal restrictions in place. If it's there forever, then you need to go back to normal. But she's sitting there telling you we're not going back to normal. But the message we're getting here in the United States is if we just get everyone jabbed, normalcy can return. We know that's a lie. They have no plan of going back to normal. She said the quiet part out loud. We're not going back to normal. She's basically saying perpetual restrictions. Those will never end. She's justifying the permanent power grab. She's saying, hey, we're not giving you back your freedom because COVID exists. And as long as COVID exists, you don't get your freedom back. But if you do what we say and inject your body, you'll have minimal restrictions, but you'll never have total freedom. So she's saying that's what it is. See, I trust what she says more than the liars over here. She's straight up saying, hey, we're not going back to normal, even though she's full of it, because you should. That's the whole reason you should go back to normal, right? If the virus is there, you'd learn to live with it. So she's saying we have to learn to live with it, but we also are still going to have restrictions in place. Over here, that governor, Kathy Hochul, is saying, yes, God wants you to do this. God says, get this shot so we can go back to normal. See, they're using it as a carrot. They're dangling it in front of your face. Hey, you'll get your freedom back if you just do this, like we told you. And there are too many sheep, unfortunately, that are falling for it in America. That's just the truth. We need more wolves than sheep in the country. And we have a lot of sheep that are following this. Like, this will lead me back to freedom. If I get my 14th booster, I'll be free. I mean, boosters every 6 months. And then I don't even want to get into it, you guys, about the boosters. But hey, this is such a honest statement from Australia. The transparency is refreshing. It's good to know that somebody can be really honest and say, hey, we're never going back to normal, because now Australians know. Any Australians that were sheep before now know, no matter how much they comply, no matter how much they shame their fellow Australians, they'll never go back to normal because the boot of the government. Now, of course, she's scapegoating. It's the virus. It's because of the virus we're not going back to normal. When in reality, no, it's you. It's you being a tyrant. It's you being you having a bloodlust for power and control. That's the real reason. So Australia, I think they're starting to figure it out. I can't believe they let themselves be conquered to this point, but they didn't have a Second Amendment. They don't, they're fighting back now. That's all I can really say, and good for them. So, yeah. So you got this NBA player by the name of Jonathan Isaac, who is I just saw this video like a minute before I went live. Very calm, very rational. Listen to what he has to say about why he doesn't want this medical procedure.
Jonathan, Josh Robbins with The Athletic. What is it about the vaccine that makes you hesitant to get it?
I would start with I've had COVID in the past, and so our understanding of antibodies, of natural immunity, has changed a great deal from the onset of the pandemic, and it's still evolving. I understand that the vaccine would help if you catch COVID, and you'll be able to have less symptoms from contracting it. But with me having COVID in the past and having antibodies with my current age group and physical fitness level. It's not necessarily a fear of mine. Taking the vaccine, like I said, it would decrease my chances of having a severe reaction, but it does open me up to the, albeit rare chance, but the possibility of having an adverse reaction to the vaccine itself. I don't believe that being unvaccinated means infected, or being vaccinated means uninfected. You can still catch COVID with or without not having the vaccine. I would say, honestly, the craziness of it all, in terms of not being able to say that it should be everybody's fair choice without being demeaned or talked crazy to, doesn't make one comfortable to do what said person is telling them to do. Yeah, I would say that's a couple of the reasons that, I would say I'm hesitant at this time, but at the end of the day, I don't feel that it is, anyone's reason to come out and say, well, this is why or this is not why. It should just be their decision. And, loving your neighbors, not just loving those that agree with you or look like you or move in the same way that you do. It's loving those who don't.
Wow. What an example. I mean, there's some I can take from that. My rhetoric about this is a little more rah-rah. It's not crazy, but if I articulated it like this, then it would make the people who want to cram down and just be authoritarian, it would make them look even more unhinged. It would make them look even more crazy. They've already been pretty crazy as far as just obsessing over this. You have to get it. You have to get it. They just live under this cloud of COVID. COVID just dominates their entire existence. And so that's all they can think about every day is, we're not getting this many people. They need to get the shot. I mean, even the resident of the United States is very hostile towards the unvaccinated, blaming the unvaccinated for everything that goes on. That governor of New York, she's blaming everybody. You've got all these public officials blaming everybody, Fauci blaming everybody who's not vaccinated. And he hits back in a very eloquent, rational, logical, straightforward, pragmatic way. And I can't wait to see what the backlash is going to be. Are fans going to boo him? This guy plays for the Orlando Magic. I mean, I haven't heard anybody put it quite like this. It's one thing if they take the low-hanging fruit, like, oh, Nicki Minaj talking about swollen testicles and all that stuff. They go after Nicki Minaj, okay? They go after people who aren't as well spoken about it. But what do you say to this? What do you say to somebody who's telling you, it should be your choice? It's all about love and respecting people's personal decisions. And then he even explained perfectly, well thought out, why he doesn't feel like it's necessary for him. And the science supports that. So that video clip needs to go viral. It's got 1.4 million views, but hopefully it makes its way around the interwebs. And people who are vaccine supremacists, people who think it's their moral obligation to pressure you to get it, should see this video and have them find exactly where he lied, what's incorrect, how it's misinformation, how they disagree, and how it's dangerous, how promoting choice and freedom and making tailor-made decisions for yourself is dangerous, because that's what the vaccine supremacists are doing right now. To them, there's only one solution, and they're being led by the White House and by the health bureaucrats and the CDC and everybody else on TV. They're being led off a cliff. They basically have been led to believe that the reason they can't go back to normal is because of you. So that promotion of division and segregation and discrimination, it makes them jump on board. Well, they don't want to get this procedure, which is why I can't go back to normal. So let's just have a society where they're discriminated against. So it makes them support that. It makes them support segregation. It makes them think that you're an other. You're somebody who's unclean. You're unfit. You're less than. Vaccine supremacy, segregation, hatred, division. That's what's being promoted. And the fact that there are people in this country, I know people, you know people, that actually believe government's going to let us go back to normal if Mike just gets the shot. Mike is in the way. Mike and all of the people who watch him and all these other right-wingers and all these science deniers on YouTube and everyone else out there that's following Joe Rogan, they're the reason why I can't go back to normal. They believe that. Government will let me have everything I had before pre-pandemic if we can just get to 98% jabbed. I mean, they don't even have, I guarantee you, they only have 98% of homeless people jabbed. And again, I keep saying this, close the damn border. Close the damn border. And, you know, maybe, just maybe, if you're going to let people just flood over the border or fly them over from Afghanistan, maybe inject them first. All right. They're coming over here expecting something. The very least you can do is make them get the jab on the way. And I don't support mandatory inoculations. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, for the sake of argument, right? If you're going to be gung-ho about everyone needs to get it, we need 98% of Americans, then you need to start at the southern border. You need to start at these military bases where Afghan refugees are being flown in. All right? That's what you need to do. Because all this mixed messaging just puts more people, it just has a chilling effect. It just makes more people pause and say, wait a minute, this isn't about health. This is about your power, your dominance. The leader of Australia, that woman, she can at least be honest and say the quiet part out loud. But Joe Biden's like, yes, I feel confident. We get 98% of people vaccinated. What about the homeless population? They never talk about them. You would think that with the way that this pandemic has torn through the elderly and the vulnerable, you would think that we wouldn't have almost no homeless people, right? I mean, obvious, the average homeless encampment has 1 to 2, if not 5 diseases just hanging out in that area, just festers in the filth. They literally found tuberculosis and typhoid fever on Skid Row, for example. So you would think, oh, that would be just a COVID cesspool. You never hear about it. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, props to this NBA player, Jonathan Isaac.
Josh
Never heard of him before, but very articulate, very smart, very well-spoken. And he stated his case clearly to the point where I want to hear a rebuttal. Tell me why he should be forced to get the jab and why he needs it. You know, you got all these big pharma salesmen, vaccine sales reps out here like, nope, everybody needs it. Don't care about their medical history. Don't care if they're vulnerable. They need it so I can be free again. More power to you. Well, let's hear your explanation. Give me your grandiose explanation of why this NBA player should be force inoculated or have his life ruined if he doesn't want to comply. Because that would be the other response. Well, he can just go start his own NBA. I'm sure that's what the argument is. Anyway, moving on. So this right here happened in New York over the weekend. I love the spirit of defiance, of the nonviolent noncompliance that's building in New York. This is at a mall in Staten Island. And the people in there from all walks of life, you see everybody represented in this video. They're letting freedom ring. Then there's that, you know. Nothing says 81 million votes like viral chants nationwide of F. Joe Biden. It's food courts, it's football stadiums, it's concerts. You love it. just love it. I just love it, you guys. I could watch that over and over. The quality of the video's not that great, but just the happiness, the chanting, the cheering, the enthusiasm. These people are proud to be American. The reason why I highlight immigrants, I specifically want to upload immigrants who come into the country and they're more patriotic than American-born citizens. See, there's this false claim, this smear that conservatives, these far-right extremists, they're anti-immigrant. No, I'm very much pro-immigrant. I want Cuban Americans, Cubans that want to come and flee communism, bring them in. If we're going to play this game where we're going to throw open the borders and just let everybody in, let's be strategic. Let Cubans in here. Let people from Hong Kong come to this country and see how they're going to vote. All right? Let's have them come in. I say all that to say there's something about that patriotic love of country and love of freedom is really what it is, what the country represents. Freedom, God, sovereignty. The people that speak that truth need the biggest platforms ever because they blow up the narratives of all these wealthy, inner city, affluent, snobby, white liberals mainly that think, oh, America's so systemically racist and xenophobic or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but all these immigrants over here standing outside of Walter Reed while Trump's in the hospital, there was almost no white people there. It was all people from Nigeria and Southeast Asia, people from Venezuela even. They're all out there talking about freedom and liberty, how much they love the country. You saw that girl from the Olympics, this past Olympics over in Japan. Very patriotic, very loving of country. It's this kind of infectious environment that they can't call this right-wing extremists, insurrectionists. It's like they're sitting in a food court in Long Island and you got everybody smiling and you saw the American flag in there. I want to see more of this. We need massive action, nonviolent, non-compliance. I got to say that over and over again because you never know. Feds could be watching. They rather, watch me. They'll probably watch me. They'll probably watch YouTubers more than they'll break up a pedophile ring, but that's neither here nor there. The goal right now is to try to undermine this liberty movement because they know it's a threat to the power. It's a threat to the power structure. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be a cakewalk to get everybody to bow down and be controlled. It was supposed to be very easy for them, but it's hard. It's difficult when you got viral videos like this, when you got people building community, people coming together, putting differences aside, not buying into the fear, the constant campaign of fear, people who don't want to be divided along racial lines or vaccination status, people from all walks of life here. And I love this. So this was out of Long Island, New York. And I'd love to see more of it. Between that and the college stadiums, and I forgot to mention, when I went to a Jacksonville Jaguars NFL game last week against my Denver Broncos, they started an F Joe Biden chant there. So that was kind of cool. But between that and these viral videos of people from all walks of life chanting USA, that's how we build momentum. What are the odds that these people are going to go out in midterms and be like, I'm going to pull the lever for the same old crap that we just got? No, these people can't wait to vote out these tyrants. Moving on. Dozens of Massachusetts state police have resigned over a vaccine mandate. Good. Love to see it. That's what you get. I'm assuming they're probably in Boston. I didn't even read the article. It's more about the headline. Dozens of Massachusetts state police troopers. Okay, state police troopers have put in their resignation papers following the state's mandatory vaccine mandate. See, how are you going to mandate that law enforcement get this jab? You can't just replace them overnight. If it were me, I would make them fire me. Work every day that you can. I get why they wanted to just resign en masse, just a large group of them. Instead of them addressing that this is wrong and they're losing people by mandating a medical procedure, they're just like scrambling to fill in the gaps. And this is only like one of dozen stories. I could do a whole live stream just covering all the groups of nurses and doctors that are resigning, police officers, state troopers all around the country that are resigning. I don't think it should be like this. I don't think they should have to resign. I think they should all make them fire you. You should just be fired. If they're going to fire you, make them do it. Make them do the paperwork. Make them tell you to your face, we're letting you go. I get it. I totally understand wanting to leave on your own terms, but there's something to be said about them forcing you out of the door. Like, nope, I won't comply. I would show up on the day that they plan to fire me and just act like I'm there to work, just to get in their head, just to let them know, like, hey, I'm making you get rid of me. Because in a way, you could say that this is what they want. This might be what they want on a mass scale. If you just kind of zoom out and think about it, they want to purge dissidents from all ranks of the military, from law enforcement, from the hospital. They want to know who these people are. They want to replace them with compliance. They want to replace law enforcement. That would be a resistance, right? They would be a problem. Because when the mandates get more severe, when they get more extreme, when it gets to the point where we are Australia, where they're knocking on your door and dragging you out, they don't want officers that are going to question that mandate, that decree. They don't want that. They want people in there that are going to comply. Same goes for the military. That's why they're putting out all these recruitment videos, cartoon animated recruitment videos talking about LGBT stuff. They want people to join the ranks of the military that would have no problem coming to your door, kicking your door down, taking your guns, dragging you out. That sounds like I'm fear mongering, but that's what they want. They want people that are going to comply. If you criticize Biden, if you criticize the highest ranks of the military, if you criticize in the FBI, they want you gone. They want to purge all of the people within law enforcement, military, medical industry, people that won't do the bidding of tyrants. They want them gone. So that's probably what this is. That's what I think it could be, getting people to resign so they can replace them. It's just not going to be that easy. So this is in Massachusetts. Bunch of state troopers are leaving the force because their mandates are psychotic. But it's even worse. 83,000 hospital workers could be fired as New York COVID vaccine mandate goes into effect. So in New York, they're actually planning to replace these workers that are going to be fired. 83,000, that's not an insignificant number. That's a lot of medical workers that are going to be fired. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant number of people that won't be providing medical care. So they're going to create an artificial shortage, which then the media will say, well, it's the unvaccinated. We're overwhelmed now, and it's the unvaccinated's fault. It's not government's fault for forcing people, people that worked on the front lines all throughout the pandemic before there was a vaccine. Now, all of a sudden, they have to take one or be fired. Make it make sense. So you're going to purge all them and then replace them with what? National Guard that are medically trained? That's weird. Or foreign nationals? They're talking about bringing people over from the Philippines maybe and Ireland or something. I heard those two countries. Bringing over medical staff from other countries to replace American citizens who are standing up to your tyranny. And they're not even really standing up. They're just like, I just don't want the shot. They just want to be left alone. They're not out there with MAGA hats and signs and pitchforks. They're just like, I just don't want this thing. For whatever reason, it's their choice. So rather than them address the problem, they're just firing them. But to make matters worse, the people that are fired aren't eligible for unemployment. But the people who don't want to work can still get benefits from the government in the state of New York. Make it make sense. You're going to fire a frontline nurse or a doctor or a surgeon who doesn't want the shot, not offer them any kind of public assistance when they pay taxes for it, no matter what you think of welfare and all that, not offering them any public assistance. But the people who sit on their couches all day, people you're paying not to work, can still be leeches on government resources, community resources. You can't make it make sense at all. So we'll see what happens. 83,000 people are going to be fired. And I bet they're probably downplaying that number. I bet the number is much higher than that. So, yeah, and I don't even want to read it. It's just a lot of people that are leaving. 48, so out of 48,000 employees, affiliated physicians, we have less than 220 have not chosen to get the vaccines. Yeah, they're downplaying it, make it seem like the majority of people have done this. It's the majority. It's the minority that doesn't want to get it. If it was just the minority, you wouldn't have to take these extreme measures. You would not have to put all these mandates in place. So easy to poke through these lies. They just lie every day. Last story. Proud Boy, FBI informant texting his handler during January 6 riot said storming Capitol was not pre-planned. This complicates efforts to prove conspiracy charges after or against the far-right groups. I mean, you saw the event last week, the J6 event that was held in Washington, D.C., and you had the federales show up looking so obvious, looking so not MAGA at all, looking like some Abercrombie and Fitch boys. That's what they look like. They were at this event. We know that the FBI was behind the Gretchen Whitmer kidnap plot. We saw surveillance video of people dressed in all black that kicked in the doors and windows at the Capitol building, video that they didn't want released for obvious reasons. Now we know. We saw, believe it or not, at the beginning of the riots in Minneapolis, there was a dude dressed in all black, looked like he had on some formal, like, I don't know, riot gear or something. I don't know what he was wearing exactly, but it looked like he was some kind of law enforcement officer breaking windows, trying to kickstart the riots. They're setting up citizens. Why can't we just say it like it is? They're setting up citizens. And a Proud Boy informant texting his handlers like, hey, here's what's going on. Infiltrators. Proud Boys have been infiltrated. They've infiltrated the Oath Keepers, the 3%ers. This is what it is, to try to undermine the movements. It's all about a subversion tactic to control what's going on, feed intel. And the January 6th is their justification for everything that comes after. They're just going to continue to feast on this. Watch, guaranteed. Next year, on January 6, 2022, they're going to mark the anniversary of January 6th. You're going to see all day coverage of it. They're going to relive it. Because think about the rhetoric they use. This was worse than the Civil War, worse than Pearl Harbor, worse than 9/11, and the Afghanistan war combined. It's the worst thing to happen on American soil. AOC almost died. She has PTSD from it, guys. The rhetoric around January 6th is going to be used for years to come. Every single year, they're going to bring it up. And of course, they got to bring it up because it's expedient for their midterm election hopes for next year. So January 6, 2022, expect all day coverage. Expect them to remind you we're at the 1-year anniversary of those events that took place where Donald Trump led a bunch of insurrectionists to the Capitol building. That's what they're going to do. I'm just telling you ahead of time. And they're going to use that as momentum and justification for any legislation they want to pass, for any further subverting and snuffing out of the Second Amendment, for crackdown on censorship, for spying on citizens. They're going to continue to do that. It's a way for them to erode the Constitution further and further and further. So they're using this no differently. I just think it's interesting that all this information is coming out now. I thought it would take at least a year. It's only been, 9 months or so since the January 6th incident. And now we know the FBI had informants embedded within. They were all over. We know the FBI was just there, or some people, I can't prove, I don't know for a fact that they were feds, but they look like feds just last week. We know about the Gretchen Whitmer kidnap attempt because one of the guys got arrested for beating his wife. And matter of fact, I forgot, somebody got arrested at the January 6th event that was just held last week. Justice for J6, I think is what it was called. The person that got arrested was an undercover fed. You can't make this stuff up. This stuff is happening, you guys. It's crazy. That's the last story I had. I'm just going to go ahead and get some shout outs in the chat and then wrap up. It's been an hour and 9 minutes. Wow, went a lot longer than I was expecting, but that's good. I feel actually better. I feel like I'm actually at 100%, whereas when I started the stream, I didn't. Has anybody gotten back to me yet in the chat? I'm going to scroll back up, but I don't know if anybody has said anything about the standard procedure for the military. If you speak out as a sergeant or whatever you are rank wise, like, is that a standard procedure for you to go to jail for speaking out in the military? If that is, it feels really archaic. It feels like, I don't know. It seems like something that would happen under Mussolini or something, not here in the US. So if that's the standard procedure, there needs to be some serious reform, especially now, man. Like Mark Milley's not being held accountable. Sorry, that's just not good. Joey, I saw that you said I should do a podcast with what's his name? The guy from the border that was shouting at Al Sharpton. I don't know if we'll have a podcast, but I've reached out to him. I'm trying to get him on the channel this week. We've been going back and forth, trying to get it hammered out. Yeah, if somebody wants to answer that for me. If not, you can just. Oh, someone said you can't speak out in uniform. Okay, that makes sense. You can't speak out in uniform. It's just like, that makes sense. But what I'm asking is it standard procedure to be locked up for it? I know that if you're working for Domino's Pizza, you can't be out taking bong rips and keg stands in a Domino's t-shirt after work. You have to put on your regular street clothes. You can't be in uniform because you're representing that company. That I understand. I even agree with it. But should you be locked up, even if you're in the military, even if you swore or whatever, an oath, whatever restrictions they have, whatever the agreement was for you to join? I don't know. I don't know if I like that. Sick Society said, yeah, there was clearly no insurrection. That's absurd. They even keep trying to label it that. Yeah, they continue. It's gaslighting. It's gaslighting. Like, don't let your eyes fool you as you watch this surveillance footage from inside the Capitol building. This is actually an insurrection underway. As people are pulling out their cell phones to take selfies, people are shaking hands, people are warming up because it was frigid outside that day. It's actually an insurrection. But what was not an insurrection is what happened in Afghanistan. Okay. Torching a police precinct was not insurrection after the George Floyd situation, or trying to mass murder people in a federal courthouse in Seattle. That's not an insurrection at all. That's something we don't even need to talk about. We don't even need to discuss federal buildings and statues being defaced and federal property destroyed. That's not insurrection. That also doesn't spread the virus either. It's the, if you're a certain political affiliation, you're just radiating all kind of germs. Apparently. Joey says millennials believe this shit. They do. I'm a millennial, but so don't speak. It's not all millennials. But yes, it's absolutely gaslighting. When you are in uniform, you are U.S. property. Ugh, I don't like how that sounds. Good thing I'm not in U.S. uniform. My wife is, my phone is blowing up right now, so I gotta wrap this up. But I'll be back tomorrow, guys, with more right-wing extremist content. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure that you give it a thumbs up. I see we peaked at 72 viewers today. See, the numbers are just gonna creep up. Now, if you have not yet, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. You have to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you don't miss any live streams. Depending on the topics that I got to cover, I may be live on the main channel, but if not, it's going to be this channel. So the only way to guarantee you don't miss a live stream is just be sub to both. Just sub to both, hit the bell. It's not hard. Subscribe, support me, and we'll keep this going. All right. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Give it a thumbs up. God bless you. I'll catch you in the next stream.